We're live. We're live.
Hello, metalheads, and welcome to a new show here on Full Metal Media. I am your host today, Jeremy the Atom Adams, or I should say, for the purposes of this show, Jeremy the 80s Adams, because this show is called Nostalgia Goggles. This is when we take a look back. We take a look back at our past, at our childhood, and at the childhoods of our friends. With me, I have my official co-host, somebody I'm really excited to be doing this show with, and someone I'm really excited to be possibly yelling at in the next few minutes. His name is Rene Villarreal, RJ Red Ranger. How are you doing, buddy?
Oh man, I've been so excited for this. I'm so glad we finally got this show put together. I can't wait to have the best arguments with Jeremy for the weeks to come. This is going to be a great start to it.
And then we also have, just kind of sitting in here, our producer is running the feed tonight. Y'all know him. You all possibly love him. He's Chance the Titan Ellison. How are you feeling tonight, buddy?
I'm just here to watch the fireworks. I'm just here to sit in the corner, eat my popcorn, occasionally get color commentary. But
and as we go through this here, we may come to you a few times to get your thoughts on things. Is RJ's audio coming in okay? Because I was hearing some issues.
Okay, you had it too. Yeah, I'm getting a little feedback. So that's kind of transformer on RJ's end. So we get another test from you, RJ.
Yeah. So coming through and anything changing or?
You sound kind of robotic. I'm not gonna.
Yeah. He's adding his own sound effects.
That's weird. I'm not doing anything different. Not seeing anything different from what I usually do.
For those of you watching, we did not fix this before we went to live, and that's how I do apologize.
I didn't hear it until we went live. Is there anything? Can we try having him come in and come back, RJ?
I can try that.
Yeah.
Yeah, try that, and then while we try to fix that, Jeremy, why don't you explain what the show is?
I will explain what the show is all about. Sorry for the hiccup there, guys. All right, so this is called Nostalgia Goggles, and basically what we do is we look back, like I said, at our childhood, and both RJ and I are going to pick a movie. We're going to pick a movie that we loved when we were kids, and the only criteria is it has to be a movie that was not very well received, maybe not even that well seen, maybe not a lot of people saw it, but we saw it, and that's what counts. So today we picked a theme. Every episode there's going to be a little bit of a different theme, and today's theme is, if I can try to explain it, it's kids movies with an action adventure sort of theme that are also about athletics. So they're like athletic kids movie action movies. And I think both the movies that we picked really give you a view of what each of the decades are. And just to kind of explain, so RJ, if you've seen him at all, you probably know RJ is a 90s kid. He was a kid in the 90s, and that's, what he's kind of all about, and he loves movies from that era. And I, as you know, I'm a dinosaur, so my movies are from the 40s. That joke's for you, Chance. No, I actually was a kid in the 80s.
So I don't have to.
Yeah, I beat you to the punch. Yeah, so my movies are from the 80s. So today, our two movies, and the theme that I just talked about are, for myself, the 1985 movie starring the star of the immortal Christmas Story, one of my all-time favorite movies, and that's why I watched this one. It's a movie called The Dirt Bike Kid with Peter Billingsley. Came out in 1985. Like I said, it's dirt biking and bike riding in general was a huge thing in the 80s, so that's kind of the athletic theme for that movie. And it is kind of an action adventure sort of a movie, and the bike actually does fly at a certain point. So that's my movie. And for RJ, we have Surf Ninjas. This is a movie that came out in 1993. This is a movie that stars Ernie Reyes Jr. and Ernie Reyes Sr., two guys that were a big deal in the 80s and 90s in terms of martial arts, kids movies, and things of that nature. And obviously surfing is the theme, and with ninjas, you're getting action. So the way this is going to work is we're both going to give you our reviews of the movie we picked, but not just any review. We're going to give you the review that we gave when we were kids. What did we think of this movie when we saw this movie as a kid, and when it became one that we loved? So we're going to go in reverse order and start with RJ here, because he's the one that kind of got this whole ball rolling, wanted to do this show in the first place. So let's hear it from our 90s kid back in the time capsule, Surf Ninjas. let's give us your review, little RJ.
All right. Am I coming through better? Is it still
Yes,
bad?
you're perfect.
Yeah.
Great.
Perfect.
Okay. So
yell at us about surf.
So 1993's Surf Ninjas, starring Ernie Reyes Sr., Ernie Reyes Jr. If you recognize the name, that's because you'll probably recognize him as Kino from Ninja Turtles 2, Secret of the Ooze.
Oh, yeah.
And then also starring is a young Rob Schneider, also starring in this movie.
Wait,
what can I say? This
Yep.
movie, I mean, like, just like Jeremy said, in the 90s, extreme sports were where it was at. That's what everybody was about. It was about extreme sports. Rollerblading, skateboarding, dirt biking, all that, and surfing. Surfing was one of the big ones especially. So somebody came up with the great idea to say, what are kids about right now, and how can we make a movie about both? Kids like surfing. Kids like ninjas. Let's make surf ninjas. And it was the greatest idea they could have came up with. So basically, in short summary, Ernie Reyes Jr. and, oh man, let me find the other actor's name real quick. Nicholas Cohen star as two brothers who are adopted brothers living in, oh man, where did they grow up? Sorry, it's
Southern California, right? Yeah.
It's California. I'm just not sure where. Oh, it's Los Angeles. Okay.
Los Angeles,
so,
yeah.
Growing up in Los Angeles, they're just your typical 90s days, of that area. They're your typical LA boys. They don't really care about school. All they want to do is surf all day. And then come to find out, a mysterious person from their past named Zach, played by Ernie Reyes Sr., comes in to tell them that they are actually the lost princes of the small island of Patusan. And the rest of the movie is basically them coming back to basically avoiding their ultimate enemy, General Chi. His name is General Chi, and he is played by comedy legend. I always forget how to say his name. Comedy legend Leslie Nielsen.
Yes, Leslie Nielsen is the ninja leader.
Is the ninja
Nielsen the ninja in this movie?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Not just a ninja. He is the ninja warlord.
Ninja warlord. And so their adventure is to escape his assassination attempts and get back to Patusan to reclaim the throne. Joining them on their adventure is Ernie Reyes Jr. I'm sorry, his character name is Johnny. Johnny's best friend, who is Iggy, played by a young Rob Schneider, who stole the movie for me. Like some of Rob Schneider's best stuff for me at the time. Like I thought he was hilarious. I loved Iggy growing up. They are also joined by randomly a Lieutenant Spence, played by Tone Locke, which
Tone Loc.
Recognize the name?
Yeah, it's Tone Loc.
Tony Loc.
Tone Loc, yes.
If you think you recognize the name, he was also in. He had minor roles in Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. He was. Oh, what was his character's name in Pet Detective?
Oh, that's a good question. I should know. I love that movie.
He was the one police officer who helped Ace. He was the one giving him all the
black guy. And if you guys don't know, this is where me as an 80s guy has to step in. He was a very popular rapper. Yeah, he had
there you go.
Ice Cold, The Wild Thing, and Funky Cold Medina. Those are his two big hits. Kind of like, funny, kind of jokey, rappy songs. So yeah, and they transitioned into being an actor in the 90s.
Yeah. So I mean, this movie was just.
I still don't know how he ended up with them, but yeah, it's your time. Go ahead.
No, yeah, but it was a ton of fun. I mean, this movie was just it's a couple of kids getting to kick ninja butt, and Ernie Reyes discovers he has ninja powers as they go on their dream, and then his little brother can see the future in his video game.
Tell them this part, please.
He sees the future in his video game.
And not just any video game. What kind of video game is it, RJ?
I believe it's a Sega?
It's a Sega Game Gear. It's the Game Gear, which is kind of like the Sega version of the Game Boy.
Yes.
And it's basically, they had to create a whole game for the movie with images that he's constantly looking at as they're happening in real life.
And he thinks he's actually playing the game. He thinks he's actually making the things happen.
He's controlling events.
He doesn't realize he's actually just seeing the future. So, it's one of those typical 90s movies. They go through some stuff. Ernie Reyes gets a girl. Eventually, they defeat General Chi. At the end, they save Patu-san. They decide, well, you know what? But we're not going to rule because we're just kids. So we're going to go home, but you guys are free. We're going to form a democracy. Yay! And then everyone ends the movie singing Barbara in by the Backstreet.
Yeah, which is an ongoing joke. Do you know who the girl, the love interest is, RJ?
Her name?
I was shocked to find out this is who it was. It's actually Kelly Hu in one of her early roles, and she is an X2. You probably know.
Wait, you fucking serious?
Yeah, and it was one of her first movies, and she's very young and gorgeous, and I was shocked that it was her.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean,
as a kid, I recognize Kelly Hu as
a kid, that's what you wanted. I wanted ninjas, and I wanted ninjas. That's what I wanted.
Do you feel like this whole vibe of this movie is just like really indicative of what you guys are into in the 90s? Like being kids then?
Me, yes. Because you have to remember, this is the same year Power Rangers came out. So martial arts was the thing. That was the thing for kids. That's what kids wanted to do. Kids wanted to do martial arts. So anyone who could do martial arts and could act, that was the big thing. That was what Hollywood wanted to catch up with. TV was doing it, so Hollywood was like, we need to get on the martial arts train for kids.
Yeah. Do you know if you had it like on VHS or anything? Like, is it something you watched all the time?
It was my go-to movie at Blockbusters.
Oh, so
that's how old it is.
Okay. Yeah.
It was every other weekend I was with my dad, and he always took us to Blockbusters. And the first thing I ran for was Surf Ninjas. If it wasn't there, I was sad. I don't know what I would get instead, but if Surf Ninja was there, I was renting Surf Ninjas.
It's so weird that back then we would rent the same movie over and over rather than just buying it. It's an odd phenomenon from that time.
Well, because remember, this movie came out in 93.
Yeah.
I was born in 92.
True.
So by the time I was old enough to appreciate the movie, it already had been out for so long, no one was carrying it anymore. Blockbuster was my only access to it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it would have been hard to buy.
So yeah, I mean, if you talk to 7-year-old RJ, this is probably the most underappreciated movie of that era. Like Surf Ninjas.
If 8-year-old RJ had to sum it up in like one sentence, what would he say about Surf Ninjas?
Quan Su, dudes. That's what he would say. He would say Quan Su, dude.
That would make sense when you watch the movie, Chance.
It makes total sense if you love the movie. That's what he would say.
All right. Well, that's Surf Ninjas from young RJ's perspective. A little bit of explanation on the movie, and now we're going to go ahead and jump back 8 years to 1985 and into the world of young Jeremy. So basically in the 80s, to give you a little bit of context, I don't know why, but at about 83, 84, 85 is when BMXing became a huge phenomenon. BMX bikes, and then like dirt bikes, motorbikes. This is when what they call crotch rockets were coming over to the U.S. and all that whole phenomenon became big. And I don't know why. I think it's because it was easy for schools to book like presentations where they would have BMX riders come in and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of where it started from, was from the school level. Like kids would see stuff live, or maybe they would go to like the local place and see the motorcycle events,
like at a mall or something, right?
Yeah, malls,
parking lots,
even like convention centers, like stuff like that. Sometimes they would even like do stuff before they would have like car racing or monster trucks or things like that. So I don't know why it just became a big thing for the kids. It was a big kids phenomenon, and then the movies started coming in fast in the 85, 86 era, and one of the big ones was called Rad. And I remember the poster for Rad was this kid on a BMX, and he's launching in the air, and it's like multicolor. It was like the coolest thing ever. And I remember as a kid being really sad that they didn't really distribute it very much on VHS. I think there were rights issues or something. So it was one that I never really got to watch as a kid. But I remember like that movie, and there were a whole bunch of other like cycling movies and things like that. So this is kind of what the culture was for kids in the mid 80s. And the movie that I picked, the other phenomenon you kind of have to know is VHS and home video really exploded in the early 80s and into the mid 80s. And it became like this was huge and this was like our lives. And people became savvy to this. And sometimes it was hard to know the difference of what a big like release movie was and what something they just put in the video store. So studios would get savvy and they'd be like, here's the new movie with an actor, you know, this big movie, and they have like a really cool like cover on the VHS, and they put a poster up on the wall to be like, oh wow, it's a cool new movie, not realizing it's some low budget thing that was probably made for TV that maybe the actor did before he even got big and anyone even knew who he was. And it was like this low budget movie and they're pushing it on you. Maybe it got shown in like one city in Minneapolis or something, but you know, that technically makes it count as a movie, and now they're peddling it to you in the VHS store to make you think it's this big thing. And that's something that happened a lot. And that's kind of what happened with this movie. I remember this movie was everywhere. Again, it's called The Dirt Bike Kid, and it had Peter Billingsley, and the Christmas Story came out in 83, and I think it really hit in the States in 84 and 85. So it was really fresh. And this was probably like one of my very favorite movies at that time. And I was always, even at a young age, the kind of kid that if I liked an actor, at that time it would have been a kid actor in a movie, like I tried to watch anything they were in. I remember watching every single Henry Thomas movie. Henry Thomas was Elliot in E.T. So there was like a bunch of like cheesy movies that Henry Thomas was in. I watched every single one of them. So yeah, when I saw this cover, and the cover of the VHS was Peter Billingsley on a dirt bike flying above the city. And when I saw that cover, I'm like, oh, it's dirt bikes. They're big now. It's Peter Billingsley from Christmas Story, and it's a big movie that must have been in the theaters. So I watched it, and yeah, I just remember watching this movie. You know, my memory of it isn't like watching the movie this time was kind of like watching it for the first time, honestly. There were little moments that I kind of remembered, but I kind of remembered that he was just like a troublemaker that, you know, was basically trying to, you know, cause trouble and cause havoc in his town and go against the grain and show the adults, you know, just kind of give the adults trouble, and, you know, him and his buddy, like, that's what I remembered the movie being. But that's actually not what the movie is. Watching it again, it's actually, the movie is basically a cheap Herbie knockoff. If you know the Herbie Love Bug movies, basically what it is there's this small town. It actually was filmed in Texas, and all the kids are into dirt biking. There's like a big dirt bike rally at the beginning, and there's this one dirt bike, and there's a really bizarre moment at the beginning, one of many, where an old man like stands behind the lead kid, Peter Billingsley, there, and he's like,
oh, don't even get me started about that old man.
That bike's different. There's something different with that bike.
Don't even get me started about that old man.
It's so weird and wrong on every level. But hey, we're not there yet. So basically, this bike, he ends up, this bike kind of comes to him, and then it becomes clear pretty fast that this bike's basically a character. Like, it's got two headlights. It's actually, I thought it was really cute, actually, the way that they designed this thing. Like, this thing, it rides around on its own. It makes a sound that's kind of like the sound that the car makes in Absent Minded Professor when they put flubber in the car, or in Flubber with Robin Williams. Like, it's got that flubbery sound. Like, it's like the car's flying and stuff. But that's the sound that the dirt bike kind of makes all the time to kind of give it some personality. And basically the bike kind of adopts this kid, and you know, the story of the movie is there's this banker, and he's trying to destroy the local hot dog place. And
Tell him who the banker is. Tell him who the banker is.
Stuart Pankin? The actor or the character?
The actor.
Yeah, Stuart Pankin. This is a guy who's in a lot of stuff. What did you know him from, RJ?
Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves.
Yeah, Honey, We Shrunk Ourselves. Yeah, he was in that later on. But you would know him if you saw him. The guy was in a million things, did voices in a million animated cartoons. And he's this evil banker who's trying to destroy this hot dog place. And this is like the place where all the kids go. And the guy that runs it is their Little League coach. And of course, the bank has the rival Little League team for some reason. And it's kind of a funny gag. Like, all of their jerseys have like banking stuff on them, like banking numbers and things on all of their jerseys. And they're like the rival team. And yeah, so him and the bike basically end up having to go up against this banker. Eventually, they've got to save the hot dog place. There's a lot of those shenanigans that ensue, and it's all very Herbie-like. And there's one really bizarre and, in my opinion, really wonderful moment where they come to arrest the kid, because him and the bike and him have been going into the bank and wreaking havoc and all of this stuff. And instead of arresting the kid, they arrest the bike. And they take the bike and they put it in a cell. And there's a shot like the camera looking through the cell at the sad eye headlights of the dirt bike as it's sadly locked up in prison. It's the stupidest thing, but I thought it was kind of wonderful in a ridiculous way. So yeah, just and the movie, it really feels like a TV movie, and I think that's kind of basically what it was. But instead of going to TV, they kind of they were trying to cash in on Peter Billingsley's popularity at the time and kind of push it as maybe this was a movie, so we got it on VHS. And I do remember it was always in the stores. I remember kids always renting it. And if I was to give my review as being young Jeremy, I just think, hey, there's bikes, there's motorcycle races galore. I mean, there's wacky races through this whole movie. There, Peter Billingsley, I love him, and I actually honestly think he's good in the movie because I think he was always good. The adult actors, I'm sure we'll have more to say about them later, but he was, and I just think I probably watched it. I think we rented it a few times, and I just think young Jeremy's like, that movie's fun. That kid is awesome, and I love that part where he flied. So that's basically 6-year-old Jeremy's review on the Dirt Bike Kid. All right. So now we're going to switch gears, and this is the part where we give our actual current review. I think RJ kind of already gave a lot of his thoughts on the Surf Ninjas, but if I can just ask you for a minute, RJ, to be maybe a little more put your critic's hat on and actually kind of give me your thoughts on Surf Ninjas. What would you, if you had seen that movie for the first time now, what do you think you would say about Surf Ninjas as a movie, taking 8-year-old RJ out of the picture?
F you guys, I still say Kwansu dudes. No, I'm just kidding. No, honestly, watching it again, I'm gonna use a catchphrase that we're gonna use on the show. Take the nostalgia goggles off and tell me about Surf Ninjas. Okay. Ernie Reyes here can't act at all. I don't. True. He can't act. Whoever decided that, it's hard because when I look at this movie, even with my nostalgia goggles off, it doesn't seem like it's trying to take itself seriously.
Oh, no.
It's purposely being stupid. Leslie Nielsen is General G. There's no way they thought anyone was going to take that seriously, especially with the whole joke of him always trying to beat his answering machine. It's what? Yes. It was definitely a little rushed. Obviously, in the 90s, they weren't allowed to make as long movies as now. It was an hour and a half, and you had to fit this whole story in there. They spent a lot of time, setting it up, and then all of a sudden we're in the thick of it. And it's kind of it was a little overwhelming of man, I forgot how quick we just jump into okay, now we're in Pachusan and we're going to fight. Whoa, hold up. God, what else? Dialogue leaves a lot to be desired, obviously,
What is your, I think you hinted at it before. What's your opinion on the humor in the movie?
I still get a kick out of Rob Schneider. I actually still almost laughed at everything he did that I laughed at as a kid. Some of the jokes, obviously, they're a little dated. Some of them,
Some of them.
Most of them are dated.
Answer machine.
You would have got it more as a kid, or you would have found it funnier as a kid. There's this one where it's the whole joke of he's your father was a king, and his father was a king. Well, your father was a moron, and his father was a moron. And then the little brother tries to come in, and his father was a moron, and his father was a moron, and the guy who sold him his house was a moron. I'm only as a kid would you have found that funny. Now it's just why is that funny? Why is that a joke? That joke makes no sense. Just kind of, also, like I said, the way they speak, it's very 90s slang. So you're why would you say that to that person? There's this one part, he's I am up El Crico de Mer. I'm what does that mean? How does that mean you're in trouble? How does that mean you're not okay? So yeah, the dialogue leaves a lot to be desired, but it is a 90s movie, so I can't blame it because it was using the slang of the time.
Yeah.
Tone Loke's character was not needed at all.
Yeah.
Completely useless. Don't know why he was in there at all. I think he was literally in there for his one great line of that movie, "Brothers don't serve." That's the only reason he was in that movie, to say brothers don't serve.
What do you think of it, like, from a filmmaking, like, perspective? Like, do you think it holds up? Like, do you think did the action scenes work? Do you like the sets, the look of the movie? What are your overall thoughts, like, looking at it now?
What can I say about setting wise? I think it still holds up. They did a very nice job of like getting you the feel of LA. They shot in Hawaii and Thailand for most of the island scenes, which I think they did fairly well. The action scenes, once again, I go to Ernie Reyes Sr. For some reason. He just didn't thrill me. Like Ernie Reyes Jr., I don't know why. I get a kick out of watching him fight.
Yeah.
Not his dad. Not his dad so much. But it's nice to see that it's them. But and I think that was probably their problem, because they did continuous shots because it was them fighting.
Yeah.
So you couldn't fix the mistakes a lot. Like there were some, like, how did you hit that guy? Like you literally did not hit that guy who just threw himself on the floor. But they were going. So
maybe the editing could have used some updating.
Exactly, the editing could have used some updating. But other than that, I think it still holds up as what it is. Like I said, I don't think it tried to be an A movie. I think it was like, no, we are a boom movie on a budget. If you actually look at it, Ernie Reyes Jr. is one of the executive producers on it. Mm-hmm. So I think they wanted to make a nice little kind of martial arts movie for kids that kids would watch, and I think that's exactly what you got.
Yeah, and I think they were like stunt people, like Ernie Reyes Sr. I think did a lot of stunt work and things like that. So I think they were wanting to step out from behind the scenes. So, all right. Now it's my turn to, as an adult, try to evaluate this weird dirt bike movie that I picked for some reason.
Oh, I can't wait to hear this.
I want to hear this shit.
All right. First off, I want to say I actually enjoyed watching this movie. From the beginning, when it started, I was like, I thought, this could be terrible and would be a real chore. And it actually wasn't. Like, it's one of the stupidest things I've watched in a while, and it really took me back to how stupid so much stuff was in the 80s. Like, I really think there was this vibe of, there was kind of a, there was almost like some negativity toward kids. Like the adults making movies then were kind of like, kids are stupid, just throw some shit together and we don't really care. And I think there was a lot of that in this movie. But I don't know, something about just the silliness of it. I thought they actually kind of created a likable character with the stupid dirt bike. Like, just what they did with, like, the way that it looked, and like the way it constantly gets into hijinks, and it really kind of almost makes you believe that he's actually in charge. And when he takes off with the kid on him, the kid's like, whoa, like that happens throughout the whole movie. And I think there's something kind of fun about that. I think they capture a little bit of the spirit of Herbie in those movies, but yeah, it's really low budget. It kind of reminds me of the original Benji film from the 70s, and the fact that I think Peter Billingsley is great. I think that he has that same kind of likability that he had in the original in A Christmas Story, and he's fun. But yeah, and I would say in the original Benji is like the best actor ever. Like the dog is so great in every scene, like so believable. But the adult actors are terrible. Like every other actor in Benji is awful, and the same thing in the Dirt Bike Kid. Like Stuart Pankin, who plays the villain, is a good actor, and I actually think he has some funny moments. But all the other actors are pretty terrible. But this movie, the main thing I really want to get to is that in the 80s, there was a lot of weird stuff. Like if you go back and watch kids' movies from this time, it's very cringy. Like, I don't know what was going on in the 70s and 80s, but there's a lot of weird stuff. And this movie is really wrong in a lot of ways. Like, it starts very early on because the kid's best friend is like this sex-crazed little 12-year-old. And I don't know what's going on with this kid, but there's like a girl who's obviously underage, and she's like getting excited at the BMX thing, and her boobs are like bouncing up and down, and the kid's all look at him bounce and all this stuff. And this isn't a movie like for little kids. And the kid's got like, he's hiding Playboy magazines, and it's through the whole movie this is going on. And then the movie jumps to a whole new level when you get into the villain character, and movie really takes a left turn because you get to realize pretty early on that this evil banker guy is really the precursor to Harvey Weinstein. This guy is a pervert, and I'm going to describe you one scene that is in this kid's movie from the 80s. The secretary that works for him at the bank and who runs the Little League team. Sorry, just a second, guys. Sorry. Okay. So I'm sorry. So the woman that runs this Little League team, she works for the banker. She's like his assistant. And there's a scene where he calls her to his house. And then the kid comes there. He's trying to talk to the banker, and he locks her in his den, and he's basically trying to have sex with her. I mean, they don't use those words. But that's basically what's going on. And she has to break the window and escape so that he doesn't come in there and rape her, basically. And then
What?
That happens.
Basically,
that happens in this movie, Chance. This kid's movie from 1985. So he goes in he opens the door, sees that she's escaped out the window, and he's like, "Oh man, that's the second one that escaped today. I'm gonna have to start putting bars on those windows." Yes, that is said in this movie, Chance. That is said in this movie. And there's this is through the whole movie. Like, this guy's a pervert through the whole movie. And then when you get to the end, the guy, of course, there's a lot of hijinks where the kid saves the hot dog stand. He's going to bulldoze the hot dog shop. They stop him and everything. And then there's this whole sequence where he gets the villain on his bike, and they're racing all over the place. And the guy's like, terrified. And he's like, "You need to sign this document, and you need to agree to my plan." At the end, and of course, they beat him, and he's humiliated. They throw a pie in his face. But instead of him like being thrown out of town or like being, being arrested for being a sexual creep, basically all they do is put the bank behind the hot dog place. So you've got the hot dog place in front of the bank, and the bank's still there. He still runs the bank. He's still like the authority in the town. He's just kind of been humiliated a little bit, and that's basically it. Never called on his sexual deviant stuff. Never arrested. Like, no one ever even says anything about that. It's never mentioned.
It was the 80s. It was the 80s.
The sex crazed little 12-year-old, like, the girls ignore him. Like, little girls don't like him at all because he's a little creep. And then at the end of the movie, like, for some reason, after the kid, Peter Billingsley, wins the day and they save the hot dog place and everyone's like, "Yay!" All of a sudden, the girls love the kid, the weird little creep. Like, the little girls are on his arm all of a sudden. Hey, we love him now. I guess because he was the kid's friend. It's not like he did anything. He didn't save anybody. But yeah, they love him now. Yeah, and the movie, I have to talk about the music. It was like an out-of-body experience watching this movie with this terrible, cheesy synth 80s music that somebody did on a Casio and threw into this movie. God. It was like, oh my God, it's 1985 again, and I'm a kid again, because this is every TV show, every movie. This was everything in the 80s. There were even some pop music that sounded like this, and it was just weird. There were some weird, like, the way that the movie was filmed and things like that. Like, it's so everything that we watched on TV, and it was so weird after 30 years to go back and watch this and to experience this stuff again. But yeah, like I said, I kind of in a weird way enjoyed the movie, but yeah, it's a real bad movie. It obviously was made, probably for TV. It's a low budget movie they made in Texas. And it is. I mean, I know it was a different time. I know it was the 80s. I know, but the fact that they would have those jokes, about rape and things, I think is just a comment of what people like. They would make these movies. They didn't make any sense. And let's just try to amuse ourselves and put some adult stuff in there that the kids don't see or don't acknowledge, just to kind of maybe amuse ourselves a little bit because we have to write this crap. I feel like that's the attitude that the filmmakers had. And it's kind of sad. And it kind of saddened me a little bit, for being a kid from that era. And in that time, I didn't know about this kind of stuff. I just thought this was a fun kids movie. I didn't realize that filmmakers had disdain for us like that. And so that was kind of a sad moment for me to kind of see that. And yeah, and I think we're going to have a long journey here, RJ, watching these 80s kids movies, because there was some weird stuff. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. All right. So that's the first segment. We've given our reviews, and now it's time to send it to the other guys. And instead of just going on a full-on rant, I want to kind of mix things up we actually have to talk about the other person's movie and say nice things. So we have to say at least one or two things that we liked about the other person's movie. And I'm going to go ahead and start here and say, yeah, we'll let you after. You can try to think of something nice, RJ. I just want to say, my whole attitude going into the show is that, you know, I don't know why 90s kids love their movies and think that their decade was the best. So I'm kind of coming in with a bad attitude. Like, why do you guys love this stuff and think it's so great? So I came in wanting to hate this movie, Surf Ninjas, and think it was the stupidest thing ever. Honestly, I have to tell you, I like this movie. This movie was fun. Like, it doesn't make sense.
90s automatically wins.
It doesn't make sense. And I'm going to tell you right now, I got to totally, well, I'm not getting negative. I'm just going to say it doesn't make sense, but it's fun. I think that the father and son dynamic of the Reyes, I do have to tap into my 80s nostalgia now, because there was a TV show that I watched as a kid called Sidekicks. I think it came out in 86, ran to 87. And it was Gil Gerard, who was Buck Rogers in the Buck Rogers on the 21st Century TV show, which I loved. That was kind of like Star Wars on TV. I loved that show when I was a kid. So he starred in the show, and Ernie Reyes Jr., he was 10 years old, and he basically was his little ninja sidekick. And you want to know where they came from, where Ernie Reyes Jr.'s character came from in that show, RJ? Where he came from Peltasan. It's the same country from the movie.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Surf Ninjas, I think because the Reyes has worked on that TV show, they acknowledge the TV show Sidekick. So they're almost kind of related to each other. And I love that show. I watched every episode. So it was kind of cool to see that. I actually think the action was good. It could have been edited a little better, but I think it was cool. I loved watching the surfing scenes, because I loved, like, there was this movie in the 90s, The Endless Summer 2, and it kind of had that vibe of the rock music, the rock surf music with the surfing scenes. I thought those scenes were well done. I thought it was a fun movie overall. I liked Ernie Reyes. I thought it was great seeing Kelly Hu in there. You know, it was kind of random seeing her, but that was cool. And it had kind of a fun vibe to it.
Did you recognize her right away, or did it take you seeing the credits to really?
I actually looked at it ahead of time, so I was spoiled seeing. I don't know that I would have recognized.
Like, wow, she's gonna be in this movie.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would have known watching it. I don't know that I would have caught that, but there were a lot of stuff that I enjoyed. I actually love the as cheesy as it is. I love the Sega game thing. I thought that was a fun idea, and they were always trying to incorporate video games and things into movies in the late 80s into the 90s. They were always trying to get like product placement or somehow a video games be in the story, and I actually thought it was kind of fun in this movie. And like you said, the movie's tongue-in-cheek. It doesn't take itself serious for a second. So yeah, there's a lot that I enjoyed in this silly, dumb movie that was thrown together in 1993. All right, so RJ, can you just try to say something good about this movie that I picked? Something.
No, it was. What I can say is, and I have it actually written down exactly like this. It was that cheesy 80s plot, but in a good way.
Yeah.
Like, it was that typical kids plot that sometimes you just want to see as a kid. You know, the kid got the better of the adults. Like, when the adults are all around thinking there's nothing can be done, like it's the system, you got the kid who went against the system, and he had a magical bike to help him. Who doesn't want to watch that as a kid? Who doesn't want to see a movie like that? So it had that plot, and that's what made it, you know, what it was back then. You know, what made it popular, because that's what kids like to see. We like to see kids get the better of adults.
And some wish fulfillment, it's kids versus adults. I think that was a big thing then. So some wish fulfillment, maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else there?
That's about all I can muster.
Okay. All right. Well, here it comes. So now we're going to do the section of the show called the open floor. So basically, we get to unload on the other what we really think of the other guy's movie, what we really think of the other guy's decade, how maybe some opinions we have about that time are represented in these movies, and what these movies might say about that time, maybe, you know, what our real feelings are. So open floor. I know you got a lot to say, RG, so I'm gonna let you go. Let me have it. What do you really think of the 1985's The Dirt Bike Kid?
Whoever was in charge of sound editing in that movie needs to be shot.
Of doing what? I'm sorry.
Whoever was in charge of sound editing in that movie.
Oh yeah.
Shot.
The sound. Yeah, the sound.
The whole first part where they're like at the derby and they're trying to talk at the same time. All I can hear are the dirt bikes.
Yes.
All I can hear are the dirt bikes. Whoever was in charge of that needs to be shot. His rival made no sense. Was completely unnecessary. That whole other dude didn't even need to be there. Totally.
Yeah, the one that had the bike originally, and the bike rejected
exactly,
him. Yeah, the bike rejected him because he was a bad kid. Because the bike's kind of like a little motorcycle Mary Poppins. It only picks kids that it likes, and it's gonna like help those kids. So it rejected the bad kid at the beginning, and then the bad kid ends up with a motorcycle gang.
Yeah.
What do you think about that plot line?
That was the whole him getting into a thing with the motorcycle gang was dumb. I mean, what?
Why are these motorcycle guys picking on a kid?
Exactly. Like, what do you really think for picking on a kid? Like, what? And then the whole the bike getting arrested. What the actual was that about? All I know is if any other kid would have rode into that bank on a dirt bike and didn't keep.
He does it several times. He commits criminal acts with this bike like 5 times in the movie. The police finally come, and they arrest the bike.
They arrest the bike.
Oh my God.
You're acknowledging this bike as a sentient being. That's what basically happens.
That's the weird thing in this movie. Like, it becomes clear early on that this bike has a personality. This bike is in broad daylight riding around by itself and doing stuff by itself. And people don't react to it. And then at a certain point, it becomes clear that people realize it. Because they are treating the bike like
normal.
They've got a bolo.
People see this happen for a long time.
I know. At the end of the movie, Chance, they've got a bolo on the bike. Like, we got to go find the bike. They know the kid's not on the bike. The cops are literally looking for the bike. And they don't act like it's weird. They just treat it like, whatever. This bike is a criminal. We got to catch it.
Tuesday.
Okay, so this guy lives in a small town, and yet the poster is him flying over a big city. Where was that?
That's he flies. He flies, and it kind of looks like he's flying over a big city. I don't know, like in that one scene. By the way, I know that I love when I was a kid. I forgot to mention this. I love the flying thing because obviously it was kind of like ET. Like they got a kid flying on a bike. It's going to make you think of ET, and that's going to sell your videotapes. So that was and those moments are cheesy, but kind of fun, I thought, in the movie. But yeah, it did look like he maybe was flying over a big city. Like maybe I in those moments. What do you think? Was he just over the town?
I think he was just over the town. Like, I think he just found the tallest building and jumped off of it and flew for a second. But what else?
And why didn't they fly more? Like, why didn't they do more with the flying? If you have that ability, they only do it like a couple times, and they don't do it at all in the end.
I disagree with you about Peter Billingsley's acting ability.
Really?
I thought it was garbage.
I think he's yeah. Go ahead, let me have it.
Like it's that like stereotypical B movie kind of acting, like over exaggerating your words, like "oh ma, why you gotta be like that?"
That he's in a silly zany. He's in a silly zany kids movie, and he's energetic. And if you compare, you don't think there's a difference between his performance and like the lady at the bank or the guy that runs the hot dog seller. You don't think there's a difference there?
No, like at least they kind of sound like they're talking earlier, but there's just those parts like that over exaggerated, like sometimes
I feel like their line deliveries are like, I work at the hot dog stand, and I work for the bad guy, and blah, blah, blah. And then he's energetic. He sells it. He's invested in what he's doing. I felt like I was involved with what he was doing. Yeah, it's big and over the top, but I think that fit with the vibe of the movie. And the other actors are just kind of like not good actors. I felt that there was a difference there.
I think it threw me off because it was like, I would have rather him, like, I get it. He was probably putting the most into it, but since everyone else was putting so much less, he seemed like the odd one out.
Yeah.
And, okay, yeah, once again, his best friend, also totally useless. That kid. However, I will slightly defend his pervertedness, because if these guys are supposed to be like 11, 12 years old, I don't know if you remember being 11, 12 years old, but that's kind of around the time you start going like.
That's the weird thing. Like, like obviously that isn't a thing for Peter Billingsley's character. Like he almost seems like he's got the personality of like an 8-year-old, but his friend's like, you know, pre-puberty, and it was like a weird disconnect in the movie. But yeah, I don't know what age group they're really aiming at or trying to represent. It was kind of weird there.
I figured they were like, because I want to say they talked about school for a second, and I could have sworn they said they were like 6th, 7th graders. I'm not sure. But
yeah, I think so. It's hard to say.
Like I said, around that age, I remember that's when guys started talking about girls that way, or you started looking at slightly older women like that, like, oh, look, boo.
Yeah.
Like,
but it's weird because I don't think this movie was made for those kids, though. This movie's made for like 5-year-olds. I mean, it's got a bike that gets arrested. It wasn't made for kids that were going through puberty and stuff. So it's so weird that they would have that as part of the movie. But and there's so many little weird things. What do you think of the fact that they steal the $1 million from the bank and give it to an old lady?
Yeah,
and she walks out of the bank with big sacks of money.
That was really random, because it's like that would have happened in real life. No bank if your $1 million actually doesn't exist, they're not going to have $1 million to give you.
That's so stupid. That was a very 80s moment for sure.
Actually do that.
Yeah.
No bank is just going to be like, you did not have this $1 million yesterday, now you have $1 million. That's no way.
Was it painful for you to watch this movie?
Not painful, but boring.
It was. Like, you were very bored.
Like, okay. I was like, when is this movie going to be over? Like, I was checking the clock on YouTube, like after certain points, like, how far am I into this movie? How far am I into this movie?
Yeah. And do you have anything to say? I'm gonna launch into Surf Ninjas in a second here, but anything to say about the villain and what I brought up with the weirdness?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I don't know about like to the extent of the rapey vibe, but like I said, with most movies, when they make those jokes about like unwanted sexual advances, like that's exactly who he was. He was the sleazeball of like, he's trying to sleep with all of them, and it's very obvious that none of these women are interested. He thinks his power is going to get him all that. It's whatever. But
like he won't let her leave the room. He wants to put bars on the window. I mean,
what
else could that mean other than rape?
Don't get me wrong, true, but like I said, it's looking through the eyes of a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And a kid's not going to think.
Right. Yeah. I guess not.
You're just going to think.
I don't know what a kid thinks.
Exactly.
All right. Okay, so it was boring. It was. Is there anything you think this says about the 80s? Like, what do you think about if you knew nothing about this decade, what would your opinion be of this time period based on just watching this one movie?
Y'all fucking weird. How are you gonna make, like, at least let the bike talk? Why can't it just make sounds? Like that to me was a weird one too. Like, why not just let it talk?
Did it sell dirt biking to you at all? Like, did that whole phenomenon come through in the movie, or did it just seem like a waste of time?
Like, it looked like it was going to at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like what I thought when it first started, I was like, oh, there's going to be this big dirt bike race sponsored by the bank, and he's going to win it with the magic bike and save the hot dog place. And that's not what happened.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay. That's what I thought y'all were going to try to do. So we can show off dirt biking. I guess not.
Takes a weird left turn.
Yeah, takes a really weird left turn.
All right. Well, okay. So, Surf Ninjas, like I said, I enjoyed the movie, but I do have to disagree with you. I never saw this when it came out, which is kind of weird because I loved Ernie Reyes Jr. from Ninja Turtles 2, but I guess this one I was already 14 when it came out, and I guess it just escaped my notice. But watching it now for the first time, I hated every fucking second with Rob Schneider. Rob Schneider doesn't say one thing in this movie that's funny. There's not one tick that he does that's funny. There's not nothing he does in this movie that's funny. And I don't necessarily hate him. Like, I liked him on SNL.
That is a lie. That is a lie.
What is he? I'm not lying. I didn't laugh. How can I be lying?
When he throws the dynamite, that's hilarious.
That annoyed me, by the way, because those are obviously like little cherry bombs, and for some reason they're causing big explosions. Like, that was a dumb...
When they say, let's throw the dynamite at him, and he just throws it, that's hilarious.
I maybe
When
I can
he-
sort of give you that one. And I'm just gonna say the younger kid was really annoying. Like I thought that kid was an
the little
obnoxious
brother,
character. But being an obnoxious kid who couldn't act very well, he's still 10 times funnier than Rob Schneider. Like, I think he has way more funny moments than Rob Schneider does. I don't know why he's there. I mean, he's just like this pathetic guy that hangs out with them. Like, he's just like their weird loser friend. And
that's exactly what he is. Like in the 90s, that's what you always had. You had the loser.
It was either
friend.
Pauly Shore or Rob Schneider, and sometimes Jack Black would show up and things. Yeah, so there was always that character, and I don't know, it didn't sell it for me. Like it didn't sell that character to me at any point. Like he obviously, this guy's on SNL, he's going to be the next up and coming thing. Let's get him in there. And he's he always had like kind of a East Coast accent. He doesn't feel like a surfer, like beach bum guy. I never understood his character. I never found him funny.
But he wasn't a surfer. That was the joke.
He's a beach bum. I don't know. I never got his character. Never knew why he was there, and it never was funny. All right. I love Leslie Nielsen. I love The Naked Gun, Airplane. All those movies are so great. What the fuck was Leslie Nielsen doing in this movie?
Oh, I agree with you on that.
What the hell was that? Like, they never explain, like, okay, was he a white, like, European trader that somehow ended up in charge of this ninja cult? They never explain it. He's just their ninja leader. He's not funny. He does his, like... The thing that was so great about Leslie Nielsen and like The Naked Gun and Airplane and all those movies was that he took it seriously. Like he didn't play funny. He played serious and he was doing ridiculous things, and that was funny. In this movie, he's hamming it up. He's got like, he got crushed by an elephant, so he's got like cybernetic parts now, and he's like half electrical, and he's always like doing like comical stuff, like and yeah, it's him hamming it up, and it was kind of sad for me because I love Leslie Nielsen, and to see him like kind of thrown out to sea, doing an unfunny character, doesn't make any sense, and hamming it up instead of doing the kind of the stuff that he did in better movies. That was sad for me. I thought the movie, once they got to the island, I thought the movie was actually beautiful. Like it was well filmed. The scenes where they're surfing there were good. I think that maybe they could have taken it a little more seriously. Like the movie doesn't make any sense. I mean, it feels weird to be saying that after talking about the dirt bike kid, but
one thing I would agree makes no sense was the gathering of their army.
Yeah.
It was so dumb.
Yeah.
So dumb.
It just, but if you just go in expecting a silly 90s movie, it delivers, I think. Leslie Nielsen and Rob Schneider, the attempt to add that humor didn't work, and it was sad for me. I think they're, better movies from that time that were kind of in this vein, or maybe even like more cheesy, like a movie that I love that came out the same year as Airborne, which is the rollerblading movie. Like that movie sucks. That movie sucks, but it's fun. Like it's a lot of fun. And I think it all kind of works on the same cheesy level. Whereas Surf Ninjas, there was some unevenness in that you've got this humor that doesn't work. These actors that are just thrown in there to sell the movie or whatever. And then once it kind of goes the more sincere, silly, Bill and Ted, brother and brother thing, I think it works better. So, I actually, we're going to end here and go to our final verdicts. And I'm going to give my final verdict and say, there's no question the 90s won here today. Like I think this gives you a good view of what the 90s were about. It was about fun, not taking yourself seriously. The surfing, the skateboarding, the martial arts, all that stuff. It shows the kids, this was a time before you had the internet and you could just be on your phone all day. Like you actually had to do stuff. So athletics were a big deal. And I think the movie kind of, at the time, I think being a parent watching this movie would have been like, these kids don't take anything seriously and they're just promoting they're going to go surf and waste all their time. But I think looking back at it now, it's kind of positive because it's like, no, they're doing athletic things. They're physically active. They're bonding with each other. They're not just on their phones, not like texting each other. Like they're actually communicating. And I think it's kind of a silly, fun portrait of that time. And, I think if I had never seen a 90s movie, I think I would have been like, oh, okay, so that's what this was about. I can kind of see why these kids, enjoyed their time period. So, that's kind of my final. I think the 90s won your day. I think my movie, again, it was a cynical kind of thing. We're going to push this thing on kids. We're going to put it in the video store. And though I kind of enjoyed it, I, again, defend Peter Billingsley. I think he had an energetic performance. I think that it's not a good view of what the 80s had to offer. And I think that, based on these two movies, the 90s, maybe they cared a little more about what they were doing and what they were giving the kids. Maybe in the 80s, they were kind of like, whatever, we're just going to make a buck on these idiot children. So the 90s definitely take the nostalgic goggles off, put them back on. I think the nostalgia wins for the 90s. What do you think there? I'm sure you agree, RJ.
Yeah, I mean, this was no question. You weren't going to convince me that any movie you were going to bring up was going to be better than Surf Ninjas. I told you, this was life as a kid for me. This movie was the movie.
Sadly,
like when anyone
that was my life. The Dirt Bike Kid was kind of my life too, in a sad way. But you know, in a good way for Surf Ninjas.
Like I said, especially at a time when we're talking about, like I said, this was my blockbuster movie to go to. Back in the 90s, Blockbuster was at the top of the mountain. So that's what you talked about with your friends, about what you're going to do over the weekend. If you're talking about like, man, I'm going to go rent a movie. If you weren't going to the movies, you were going to rent a movie. So you're always talking about, I'm going to go to Blockbusters. Oh, man, what are you thinking of getting? Mm-hmm. Every time I was like, Surf Ninjas. That's what I'm going to get.
Yeah.
And I will defend Rob Schneider to the death. We'll have a discussion about that later because I find him hilarious.
I have a feeling he might come up again on this show. So
he probably will. But
and then we have a Paul Shore talk at some point. All right.
Like I said, your movie was enjoyable for the most part for an 80s movie, but I can't deny just what Surf Ninjas was for me as a kid. So I mean, there's no question 90s wins the day.
Yeah. All right, well, we're wrapping up here. I just want to get some thoughts from our bystander Chance. Like, based on everything you've heard today, what do you think about all this? What do you gather from all this?
What was happening?
I know.
Okay, like as we were going in the show, I started looking up all things you were saying. Like I saw like Leslie Nielsen's like ridiculous ass ninja costume. That's stupid. I saw Rob Schneider, which I didn't notice till now. Young Rob Schneider looks like the boy kid from Spy Kids. I never noticed that until now.
Yeah, especially with the dyed hair and that. Yeah.
It's funny. I looked up the Dirt Bike Kid on. I looked at the Dirt Bike Kid while we were doing this, and here's the official synopsis that Google gave me. So the official synopsis according to the internet is a teenager, Peter Billingsley, and his magic motorcycle stop a banker out to close a friend's hot dog stand.
That's the movie.
That's literally
that's what we watched in the 80s. That's what entertainment was.
They sound absolutely ridiculous, but based on what you were saying, I've never seen, but based on what you were saying, I agree. I'm more sold on the 90s, and I'm more sold on Surf Ninjas.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But my day will come, RJ, because you guys watch some shit. So my day will
come. Hey, win like a champ, lose like a champ.
I lost.
Get that shit back to the 80s because you lost.
I did. All right. Well, that's going to end it for today, but I'm going to go ahead and plug our next episode. We've already decided what the theme for the next week is going to be. And the theme for the next week is going to be talking animals. You can't be a kid if you can't be a kid if you don't have talking animal movies. So
wait, hold on. Let me take a guess. RJ pick is Gordy, isn't it?
Tell him, RJ.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be Gordy, baby.
It's Gordy. It's the department store babe. It's the low rent babe, Gordy, from I believe 1995. Actually, I think it came out the same year as Babe. So it makes sense. And then I have a movie. It's a little different. It's not technically a talking animal movie, but sort of. It's 1980s Oh Heavenly Dog. And Oh Heavenly Dog was by the people. You're going to find out a big deal for me was Benji. I love Benji, the dog. He had a series of movies and a few TV show, lots of stuff. It was a big deal in the 70s and 80s. And in 1980, the director Joe Camp made a movie called Oh Heavenly Dog, which was... It's one of the weirdest freaking movies ever, and we'll get into it. But basically, Chevy Chase is like a private detective, and he's on this case, and he gets murdered, and he goes to heaven, and they're going to send him back to Earth to kind of solve his own murder, and they send him back as Benji. Chevy Chase is reincarnated as Benji, and so for the whole movie, basically, you're seeing Benji, trying to solve this case, trying to, get the bad guys and all this stuff, and the whole time Chevy Chase is narrating his thoughts. So it's like Chevy Chase narrating the thoughts of Benji in a private detective movie in 1980. So those are our 2 movies for next week. I think they're going to be fun. I think it's going to be, I think this one's going to be a little closer, honestly. I think I'm
going to be 2-0.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I'm pretty
I don't know.
Gordy,
I haven't seen this one, but I'm betting. I'm not betting on the Niners.
No, Gordy, no. All right, so we're going to have fun next week.
Well, let's not fight now. What's the next week?
All right, so that's our show. Come back. Check us all out, guys, on Full Metal Media. Check out the shows that we post on Worldwide Movie Games. We're so glad you're with us today. And eventually we're going to have some guests. So if you guys want to, pick a movie you love when you're a kid that maybe isn't thought that well of, be sure to come on and host with us sometime. We're going to have some guests eventually. So 80s kids. I know there's a couple of us. Sandy, let's defend our decade. We gotta fight back here. All right, we gotta fight back. All right. So I'm Jeremy the Adam Adams, or the 80s Adams, signing out. And for RJ, for Chance, thank you guys for tuning in. And we'll see you next week. And put those goggles back on.